Okay, so this is Ubuntu 22.04 LTS Jammy Jellyfish. This is a daily build, so not down as a stable build, but I just wanted to experiment and have a look at it. And actually on my 4GB and 8GB Pi, it's now working fine. Thanks to this tip from Bill B, fix Ubuntu 21.10. But before I do that, there's one more quirk that I've got, which is that if I call up, say for instance, the terminal, you can see the mouse is working, and I try and type, I can't type, nothing comes out. Weirdly, if I plug in, this is a USB mouse, but I can also use the same, I've got a dongle for a USB keyboard, a little tiny mini one. If I plug this into any of the USB sockets, bearing in mind this is a mouse and it's not switched on at the moment, if I now start typing, it works. Weirdly, and I think if I unplug this, I think it still works as well. Oh no, so that stops my keyboard from working. I don't know why this is. It's been happening with for me with Ubuntu for a while, and all I've done is just plug this in. So if anybody knows a fix for that, I'd be interested in it. It's not that it's the end of the world, but you know, for some other people, you may only have one mouse and keyboard. But as I say, this seems to be something to do with this Logitech, which pretty much works with everything I've ever tried it with. But I definitely get this with Ubuntu, and it was one of the GNOME updates that seemed to have done it. Anyway, let's go into screen capture and I'll show you the fix to stop it from freezing. And it's to do with the KMS video driver. So if you go to sudo nano /boot/firmware/config.txt and put your password in. And I've added these lines for overclocking, but the only thing you need to change really is this line. So this line comes as standard as this KMS. So it's enabling the real KMS driver, but it seems to have problems with Ubuntu. So all you have to do is put an F in here, and then Control X and yes, and enter, and then reboot, and it's all done. Now I was trying this because of a story in Raspberry Pi News 47, which is about Zswap, which is all about getting Ubuntu to run well on a 2GB Pi, which is supposed to happen in the next update. So let's just click in this, and I put a link in the description to the two stories. So yeah, if I pick the OMG Ubuntu one, because that's got a link to the blog, if I scroll down. So this is to enable Zswap, which I have done on this computer. So if I go into my file system and boot and firmware and command line.txt, you can see Zswap is enabled there. But weirdly, if I go into system and under resources, it says swap not available. Now I don't know if that's because Zswap treats it differently, but I'll boot up in a minute into Ubuntu 21.10 to show you that, because Ubuntu 21.10 is working pretty well on a 2GB Pi. Yeah, this is the blog, and there are more instructions on there. So if we scroll down through, so here's that same command, but there's also some more sort of optimization here as well, which Dave Jones has said has been working pretty well. So let's try that in 21.10, and I'll just show you how different everything is. So that was running on this Pi with an SSD drive. I'm actually going to use a Samsung bar, which isn't as quick as this SSD drive, but is still pretty quick because I've got Ubuntu 21.10 on that already. Let's transfer it all over. Obviously the two dongles, so I can get the keyboard. Actually, I'm going to do, so I'll do the one dongle at this stage to see what happens with the keyboard on 21.10. So let's boot that up, and let's go to system, do the same thing as before, and just to show you how much RAM it's using. And it also says swap is enabled, look. So I haven't done anything to this yet. So if I go into those same folders, so computer, boot, firmware, and command line.txt, you'll see that there is no mention of Zswap, so it hasn't been added to this system. This is a clean install of Ubuntu 21.10. Let's just check that it definitely is 21.10. So you can see here Ubuntu 21.10, Raspberry Pi 4, the 2GB Pi 4 running at 2 GHz overclocked. And if we go on the left hand side, at the moment we've got 1 gig of memory in use. If we open up Firefox, you can see the memory is going up, but it's still only 1.1 gig. So nothing bad at the moment. and the swap is being used here, look. Although Firefox does seem to take ages to boot. It's weird because once it's booted, Firefox is pretty snappy, but to initially boot it up, it does seem to be slow. Right, let's get that window smaller so we can just keep an eye on the system at the same time. So 1.4 gig at the moment. Let's just go for my channel and see how it goes up and see that the swap is being enabled. But I don't think this is working that bad. I think this is pretty much acceptable. I've always stuck to 32-bit OSs, but yeah, I think this is running all right. And if we play a bit of one of my videos,
battery 60%.
Introducing the first ever all Google phone with Google Tensor.
so the advert seems to be working all right. And then settings, let's change it to 720.
So just before Christmas, I got the Oculus Quest VR.
Oh, okay. So that's running pretty slow. See if it sorts itself out. The memory is up to 1.6 gigabytes and it does seem to have frozen and doesn't seem to be wanting to play. Okay, that's a good reason to enable that Zswap. Oh, I need the text from this article. And I have had really good results with Zram on the Pi 02W running Raspberry Pi OS, but that's a 32-bit operating system. But it made a huge difference to it. That said, with the Pi 02W, Chromium still runs really bad on that, but that's only got 512 meg of RAM. But then using the Puffin browser, that combination was actually very usable. So let's scroll down here and find that story. We'll use the FOSS one. They're both pretty much the same information in there. And here it is to enable Zswap. So let's copy that. And in Pi News, I couldn't get this far. Because I had that freeze with Ubuntu, I just couldn't get as far as this. So this is progress. Right, so let's reboot. And let's have a look at system again. So swap does seem to be enabled as well, which it wasn't on the other one, on Jammy Jellyfish. So have a look in the command line just to see if Zswap is showing up as enabled. It's showing up as enabled. So before we do anything else, let's just try Firefox and see how well that works. Okay, so let's try this video because it's got constant movement in it. The advert came up pretty quick. And let's see what we're playing at. Yeah, we're at 720. Well, it's definitely playing better than it was before. And what we're looking at the left-hand side, so 1.6 gigabytes of 1.9. The swap is at 226.9. It does seem to be doing it. Yeah, to be fair, that's already definitely made a difference without any of these extra tweaks in. That's definitely improved the performance. Let's pause that and just open up another few things to see what it does when you put it under a bit of pressure. So let's, well, this is just files. Then if we open up the music app, let's move this out of the way because you can't see what's going on. What are we at? 1.6 of 1.9. It doesn't seem to be going over. So we open up the App Store. The App Store always seems to take up quite a lot of resources on Ubuntu. Always seems to start up pretty slow. And when I've tried this before, I was definitely getting quite a lot of crashes on the 2 gig Pi. You can see that it's struggling to do the App Store here. I mean, I have got the browser open, and the browser is one of the big parts, one of the hardest things to run on a 64-bit OS with 2 gig of RAM. It does seem to put a lot of strain on it. But it's not crashed, which is a real key thing. You can see the swap is going up. And it's not fast, but obviously I am trying to open lots of things at the same time. What if I try and go back to the music app? Yeah, that's there. Then if I go back into the software application, if I go back into the App Store, yeah, it is working and it's not crashing. Let's concentrate a bit more on the browser itself because I think that generally is one of the things that isn't as good. My mouse pointer's definitely got a bit more sluggish. So we don't need files open, we don't need the music app open. What have we got? Just the browser and the system monitor now. So let's call up a web page. Oh, it's slow on the URL bar. Let's try that again. I typed it in the middle of the bar. Hot UK deals. And let's call that up. Yeah, it seems to be, it's definitely working better. There is no doubt this is definitely working better. I'm not sure still if I choose a 64-bit OS over a 32-bit one on a 2 gig Pi. I think what we need to do is put in those extra commands to see if we can get it performing better. And let's do the OMG Ubuntu story because that's got the link to the blog. So here's the blog. And it is mentioned in here to use Zswap even on systems with more RAM as well. So here's the code that I've already enabled. This is sufficient to enable Zswap. If you were to reboot at this point, it would already be working. If you don't want to get into things a little bit more complex, then feel free to stop at this point. Zswap's defaults are, if anything, a bit conservative. The default ZBUD is limited to 2 compressed objects per page. LZ4 is very fast, so that's what's being enabled here. So let's give that a try. So let's copy this in and paste that in and keep pasting in. And don't worry if it seems to pause for a while, it does seem to be doing something now. Okay, so now we need to add some more things to the command line. Let's copy and paste those in. And then the second one. Now reboot and you should have Super Wizzy compressed RAM setup complete. To check everything is set correctly after rebooting, you can run the following. So let's reboot first. So as you can see, everything looks the same here. Enabled, yes, 20%, and so on. Z fold 3, LZ4, yeah, everything looks like it's running as it should. So let's start up system again. Okay, so this is 720 full screen, and yeah, there's definitely an improvement. It definitely is pretty decent. And let's just quit out of that and get my browser a bit smaller so we can see how it's doing with the memory cache. 1.5 gig. Let's pause that and do the same as I did before and start opening these things up. So 1, 2, 3, and also the software as well, just to see if it crashes really, or to see how it performs. So we've got quite a few things open at the moment already. So if I go back to the mouse pointer, goes a bit stuttery, but not bad. And so the software is definitely booted up a lot quicker, and LibreOffice is running as well now. Yeah, this is looking alright actually. I need to play around with it more to know for sure, but first impressions are definitely very positive. Okay, so I was going to end the video earlier, but I've gone back in and played around with it while I wasn't recording, and the video is playing with all these apps open, and the performance is definitely really good. So if I open up the Files app, if I switch to the Music app, if I switch to LibreOffice Writer, do a bit of typing, you can see that it's responsive and it's there straight away. On the App Store, it's on Explore at the moment, so if I click on Installed, if I click on Updates, if I go back to Explore, get back to the web page, let's do a search for Hot UK Deals. I can't believe this is a 2 gig Pi with 64-bit OS. It is actually running really well. So I definitely look forward to this new version of Ubuntu having this built in. But not that it's hard to apply those fixes, but they make the world of difference. Really, really usable, really nice to see. So thanks very much for the blog. Thanks very much for watching. I hope all this helps. Please like and subscribe.